The tricky thing about content creation is that you're always up in your head of how do I create content that is fulfilling to me, but also serves a purpose and is valuable to other people. There's two trains of thought here. A lot of people will argue against or for a certain side where they'll say the greatest people of all time will be more focused on their own creativity and what they want to bring to the world rather than the end consumer or audience. And they will naturally attract the audience and the right customer purely by focusing on how to put out their heart and their mind and their own creativity. And I think there's something to be said for you need to lean into that and you need to find that within yourself. But I also think it's not a black and white recipe for anybody just getting started. Having an understanding of who is the best person to be listening or watching what you're putting out and speaking directly to them and connecting with them and building relationships with them is vital. And that's what the Thrive on Life podcast started as, where I wanted to connect with the guest and sharpen my skills on podcasting and showing how passionate I was about certain topics that we were talking about. And I did that for 4 years. But what ended up happening was I found myself starting to create for other people rather than asking myself, what do I want to bring to the world? And what does it look like if it was catered directly towards how I like to do things? And I made up this thing in my mind for a long time of I need to bring guests on, and I love doing in-person podcasts, but there was so much friction behind that where I was doing 80% of the work had nothing to do with the conversation and learning and curiosity, the things that I actually loved, and going deep on certain topics. Like right now, the topic is creating for yourself versus creating for others. That's a whole podcast episode if you really want to break it down. I wasn't doing that anymore. It was purely just for show and show business. It took me about a year to realize, though, that that's what was happening. And it's not that I was producing bad episodes. I was producing, in my mind, really great episodes, and the guests had really great conversations with the guests and was loving the relationships I was building. It just felt slow and monotonous, and I couldn't do what I wanted to do, which was at the drop of a hat, provide value to other people in this world that feel similarly to me and are going through similar things. And now we have a setup where I can literally write down some ideas and jump on here and produce them very quickly and hopefully connect with people out there that are going through things that I similar things that I'm going through. And I'm going to tap into the next topic here that I want to get into, which is essentialism and understanding how to let things go. There's a book, Essentialism, Greg McKeown, and a lot of it talks about understanding what is essential in your life. Obviously, by the title of the book, Essentialism. In my life, I found couldn't really find what is essential until I tried a bunch of different things, including this podcast. I didn't understand what was essential in terms of gear, in terms of guests, in terms of content I wanted to produce. I've done so many different ideas. We've had panels on podcasts. I've produced on vacation. I've had a travel setup. We now have a setup in my home where I can do in person. I can do solo. I can do three people. I have headsets. I have the whole nine yards. But I wasn't asking myself what is essential to my journey and what it looks like to quote unquote win. For me, a win now looks different than a win in in the past. In the past, it was just producing a podcast. That was the win. It was just getting episodes out and producing something and seeing the smile on the guest's face. That was a win. But today, to me, that would be mediocre. Mediocre is just showing up. Mediocre is checking the boxes off and saying we got the job done. But those who want to be great, they're asking themselves, how do I think outside the box? And how do I get uncomfortable again to continue to progress? And that's where I'm here right now. This isn't as comfortable as bringing a guest on. Speaking directly into a camera right now and talking about my own thoughts and feelings and things that I'm going through and where I want to go, not just in business or podcasting, but in my personal life as a father, as a husband, as an athlete. That's not something that I think comes naturally to anybody. You have to practice doing it. You have to put the mic in front of your face, the video in front of your face, and just let it rip over and over and over again. I think of people like Joe Rogan, who started as a comic, and how many different things that he's tried throughout his life to then curate a life that he really loves and shows up to every day and does the things in terms of career that he loves. And most people would say, if you started, if we go back in time with him, you can't do all those things all at one time. You can't be a UFC host and the world's largest podcaster and a comedian. You can't do all those things simultaneously. And I found that to be another issue with me when I was podcasting. It was like I had all these creative ideas, but I was boxing myself in to what the Thrive on Life podcast was, rather than just saying, what do I want to bring out into the world and how do I want to create it? And then continue to throw spaghetti on the wall until I truly find what that lane is and where I want to attack greatness. And I think I'm getting closer to that lane because I'm feeling much better producing something like this. And it's only going to get more sharp as I go. I'm going to figure out my system, and then I'm going to make the studio look better. And then as I bring guests on and drip them on, and I have conversations with my wife, this show is going to get better and better at articulating the value and creating this community around people listening and wanting the information that we're providing and connecting with it on a deeper level. Now, a lot of my train of thought right now goes into my third talking point here today. What does a great day look like? And when I thought about where podcasting and content creation in general existed for my life, in my life for the past decade, where I want it to exist in this current moment, and how I want it to exist as I have more children moving forward with my wife, Erin, it's going to shift, it's going to mold. And as I'm thinking through that, I didn't want the limiting factor of I can only have a certain amount of guests on, or I can only produce content in a certain way. Like that constraint just wasn't jiving with me. And I continued to box myself in for a pretty long time. And anybody else out there, maybe you're doing the same thing to yourself. To unbox yourself, sometimes you just have to let the thing go. And that's what I did. I stopped podcasting for over 4 months, just let it go to figure out, what does a great day look like with a podcast involved in it? And I realized that what would make me happy is the actual podcasting. There's no constraint of like, it has to have a guest, has to have my wife. It's purely just thinking of topics that are meaningful to me and potentially meaningful to other people, and just going, just pressing go. And I lost that for a bit of time in my life. And that's what makes a great day for me, is being able to just press go and hammer the day. And it looks like that in my fitness. It looks like that in my relationships. It looks like that in a lot of my content, where it's like something comes up, I have an idea, I just press go on it. And it's just constantly new ideas, new products, new businesses, talking to new people, and then receiving feedback, and then adapting my direction based on the feedback I'm getting because of output, rather than sitting here in my own mind. That's what a great day looks like. So here we are. We're producing this episode solo in my podcast studio. I just worked out, had a couple meetings today virtually, and I had the idea come to my mind of, let's rip another podcast today. And that's why I wanted this setup, is like, as soon as I have an idea that I just want to go all in on, I have this set up now. But that's not scalable. Over time, I'm going to say, here's the outline of the episodes I want to do with my wife. Here's the outline I want to do with solo. And here's the outline of guests that I would like to bring on sporadically. What that will allow me to do is I can create a 2 to 3 hour segment of batching these episodes together, and being able to then focus heavier on producing a quality show based on the content that is released. So micro content, blogs, little articles, that's in the future, but it starts with getting the system up and ramped back up to just think of a couple ideas, think of some talking points, think what will hit home most with me and what I'm passionate about and bring that out of me. And then that's what's going to hit with other people out there. Then I'm going to do everything else that I just said, create that system and determine what results I want once that system is up. Because in the past, it was downloads was the metric. But the reality now is I would much rather have episodes that are targeting specific pain points that people have because I have the similar pain point and how I'm talking through conquering that. And then to understand stories of other people that are going through the same thing and have them either send me a message, an email saying that this episode was helpful to them. And I would get that sporadically in the past, but reality is when you do guest shows, they have their stories that they end up telling and like people listen to them, sure, but there's no real long tail impact because it was just one little episode on that person and nothing really changes. But if I'm able to stack ideas and an example of this would be doing a series on fatherhood where I create a fatherhood series of like, how did I think about being a father the year before, then as my wife was pregnant, then once he was born, then the first year. It's going through concepts that other men are also going through and sharing in detail how I was going about that. Then we also have like fitness is like my journey in fitness and how I thought through that, creating a series on that where somebody could go through that and truly understand the work that has gone in behind the scenes and potentially solve a problem of their own behind the scenes based on me just sharing stories and anecdotes and data that I have. This is not something that I've done in the past. It was purely focused on the guest and telling their story, which is great in and of itself, but there was something missing there. I love being extremely valuable and providing a curated data set really of information so that people can use it in their own lives. Like that's what Thrive on Life is. It's about not me showcasing how I'm thriving. It's about me telling stories around how I wasn't thriving and how I'm struggling and how I'm doing things on a daily basis to right the ship just by 1 degree and information I'm receiving to right the ship so that someone else out there can do the same thing in their own lives and for the people around them. That's what it's all about. And that's where my last point comes in. It's like winning takes on different forms. I wasn't creating anymore. I was just showing up. And I was showing up based on the metrics I thought I should be following. And a lot of people do this on social media, on the different platforms. They're showing up to get the likes, to get the followers, to get the comments. They're not showing up to challenge themselves creatively and create the best possible product that they could possibly make. And when I took a step back and really saw that within myself of like, I'm not happy with my product and how it's being produced, I had to just stop it and go back to the drawing board. That was tough. And I'm kind of doing the same thing with my Instagram as well, where I am doing this 30-day, well, 31 days technically, of 5 miles a day. And then they're just recording a 1 minute video on Instagram of this. And I'm doing this because it's a challenge for myself to just produce without thinking about the end result, without thinking about whether I'm going to get likes on this or comments or shares. It's purely a thought that I have while I'm running that I'm feeling and that I want to put out into the world because maybe someone else has that similar thought. Now, after this month of doing that, I can take a step back and say, where do I want to go with this method of producing? Because already I can tell I love doing it, but I want to tweak it so that it does get seen by more people. Because if it gets seen by more people and connects with more people, that will help the world, in my eyes, become a better place. Because I think some of the ideas on there are very helpful. I take the approach of thinking what will actually be a topic that somebody could have a breakthrough with. Winning takes on different forms. So remember that wherever you're at in your journey right now, a win might be just producing the show. But as time goes on, you have to switch what that W looks like. You can't think that you're going to continue to win if your metric and your bar remains the same. And that's what I was doing for a long time with this podcast, is just keeping the bar the same. Oh, I'm just going to produce shows and I'm going to show up and I'm going to have 2 episodes a week. And that just remained the metric. And when I think about it right now, no shit, I wasn't fulfilled. Anywhere else in my life, if I just set the bar and I keep that bar the same for 2+ years, I'm not fulfilled, because I'm the type of person that wants to raise the bar constantly. Every day, I'm like, how do I get it just 1% better? And with this podcast, that's 100% how the bar gets raised. Is the more that I'm able to become better at producing solo episodes and value through those, then I'm going to be able to build a system where I can produce 2, 3, 4 episodes a week. And that will give me a greater chance of it impacting a broader audience and winning in the way that I want to win, which is, because the broader audience will be reached, then more people will connect with me and I will build relationships with them on how do all of us thrive on life while we have a chance. Till next time, this is CJ Finley with the Thrive on Life podcast. Thrive on, y'all.